Hello, am I audible? Hello? Am I audible?
Good afternoon. Okay, Kamali ma'am, can you hear me? Huh?
Well, people are not to make so many gestures. Log in and you'll see.
Good afternoon, Kamali ma'am.
Hello. No, the echo is because my husband also has joined in. So now he's moving away, so it'll be okay. Is it clear? Can you hear me properly?
Yes, ma'am. You're audible.
Okay, I'm visible also.
Yes, ma'am. It is very clear.
Okay, fine. Thank you. That's what I wanted
Thank
to
you
know.
so much, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. If you make me the co-host, am I the co-host? Because
No,
if you
ma'am.
make, then how will I do my screen sharing?
Ma'am, in the Google Meet, there is no purpose of co-host. You can share the screen.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am.
Can I just start sharing my screen? Hello,
Yes, ma'am.
just to check.
Yes.
Is my
Yes, ma'am. It is visible.
okay? And am I? I'm just going to scroll and see if it's all okay. Yeah, fine. Am I visible?
Yes, ma'am. It is very clear.
All right, fine. All right, fine. Thank you. I just wanted to check this.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
I'll stop sharing. 55. You have to only help. I have no idea. How many participants do we have?
170.
170. Okay. So that's congratulations. You have people from Tamil Nadu, outside Tamil Nadu?
No, no. We are telling first year, second year,
Pardon?
Second year students 172 they were telling. Different places we have informed.
Okay, 172 students. All right, that's great. And maybe from colleges outside Tamil Nadu or outside your place?
Tamil Nadu we have intimated to many colleges.
Pressed something. It's no, I'm not seeing. Hello, Father. Good to see you. Your audio is muted.
Okay, now it's okay.
Now, yes, I can see
Very
you.
good.
Thank you for joining.
Yes, nice. I asked all my MA students to join also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, that is Reverend Sister Nirmala Devi. I don't know if she can hear me.
Yes, yes, Magdalene.
Yes, see, Father George, Reverend Dr. George from Darjeeling has joined us.
Um,
Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Father.
Yeah.
Father Divya is there in St. Xavier's from Darjeeling province,
Yes, yes.
doing his PhD Max in St. Xavier's College.
That's right. Yeah, he is doing his masters or P or maybe.
PhD Max.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah. So all the best for your session this afternoon.
Yes, Father, thank you.
Thank you, Father.
Yes. Good.
Nice that we can see each other virtually.
Oh, yes. We can watch people and talk to them internationally also. Yeah.
This is right.
Oh my, what happened? Okay, that's it. It's almost 2 o'clock.
Stella? Stella?
Ma'am, good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are audible, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Sister, good afternoon.
And this is Sister Praveen. Good afternoon.
Magdalene ma'am, good afternoon, ma'am.
Good
Hearty welcome.
afternoon, Dr. Saroja. Nice to see
Hearty
you.
welcome, ma'am. Hearty welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Sister, good afternoon. Hearty welcome, sister. Thank you. Stella? Stella?
No, ma'am.
Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes.
Madam Magdalene, shall we start?
Yes, yes, ma'am, please.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Okay, Stella, you can start now.
Okay, ma'am. Small steps in the right direction can turn out to be the biggest step of our life. Small steps in the right direction can turn out to be the biggest step of our life. A pleasant good afternoon and a warm welcome to each and every one who have gathered here for this webinar on nurturing gender sensitivity, organized by St. Ignatius College of Education, Autonomous Palayam Kotai. Gender awareness is more analytical and critical since it clarifies issues about gender disparities and gender issues. It pertains to one's effort to show how gender shapes the role of women and men in society, including their role in development and how it affects relations between them. Our education system needs to be gender sensitive and gender friendly. One of the best possible strategies to minimize gender discrimination in society is to promote gender awareness at all levels of society. So, dear participants, get up yourself for this constitutional session about understanding gender towards gender sensitivity. Acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance. Let me submit ourselves to the Lord and feel His presence and blessings on this webinar through the prayer song. I request Mrs. S. Arul Immaculate Rosalind, Administrative Staff of St. Ignatius College of Education, to play the song.
Rosalind?
Audio is not here. Rosalind?
Rosalind, audio is not functioning, Rosalind. Please see that. Okay, ma. Okay.
Whatever may pass and whatever lies before, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, worship your holy name. You're rich in love and you're slow to anger. Your name is great and your heart is kind. For all your goodness, I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Yes, bless the Lord, my soul. Oh, my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before. Oh, my soul. I worship your holy name. And on that day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come, still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. My time has gone forever.
Thank you. Smile adds value to our face. Love adds value to our heart. Welcome adds value to our behavior. I would like to invite the intuitive and inventive personality, Dr. N. Tarashita Shanti, Controller of Examinations and Assistant Professor of Physical Science of St. Ignatius College of Education, Autonomous Palayam Kotai, and the Organizing Secretary of this webinar to deliver the welcome address.
Shanti ma'am, check your audio, please. Shanti ma'am, check your audio, please. Okay.
Am I audible now?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, now you're audible. Right.
Yeah, very good afternoon to all. Let us thank the Almighty God
for showering his blessings on us and having brought us together to this webinar on nurturing gender sensitivity. Gender is a way of looking at how social norms and power structures impact on the lives and opportunities available to different groups of men and women. Gender roles in society means how we are expected to act, speak, dress, and conduct ourselves in society. With an intention to change the changing attitudes of young minds, this webinar on nurturing gender sensitivity is organized. In this great occasion, I would like to extend my pleasurable welcome to our most beloved secretary, Reverend Sister Gemma, for joining us in this webinar. She is a pleasant and approachable personality who has helped many young minds to fly through the path of light. We welcome you, dear sister. I am much delighted to welcome our beloved educational counselor, Reverend Sister Dr. L. Vasanthi Madonna, who directs the council towards excellence. With her ever-trusted guidance, the institution shines to the top. We welcome you, dear sister. I'd like to welcome our most respected principal, Dr. M. Maria Saroja. She has rendered her dedicated service to our institution for its development, thereby making it as one of the leading institutions in southern Tamil Nadu. I also feel honorable to welcome the resource person, Dr. Mary Magdalene Abraham, Associate Professor, Department of Engineering. She is a smart, talented, and daring person. She is a professional speaker with much expertise in gender sensitivity. With her knowledge and innovative ideas, she has transformed many young minds to a colorful rainbow. She has also planted her unique ideas for the future needs of the society, particularly in the field of education. We are much privileged to have her amidst her today to share her views on understanding gender towards gender sensitivity. Once again, on behalf of St. Ignatius College of Education, we extend a hearty welcome to you, dear ma'am. Our institution has given wings to many female birds to dream, live, and transform the others with the power of imagination.
Shanti,
Darashita ma'am, your voice is not here. Darashita ma'am?
I think some network problem is going on.
Yes, yes ma'am.
With her hard work and dedicated service, she has made the impossible possible. Welcome you, dear sister. I also welcome all the staff members from various colleges and all the other participants. I'm sure you can nurture your minds and gain ample knowledge through this webinar. I surely hope this session will be of much interest to you. I request all the participants to make the use of this wonderful opportunity to create a better future for a smarter young generation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your thoughtful welcome. Great leaders find ways to connect with their people and help them fulfill their potential. Great leaders find ways to connect with their people and help them fulfill their potential. I feel very glad to invite the great leader Dr. M. Maria Saroja, Principal in Charge, Research Director, Associate Professor of Biological Science of St. Ignatius College of Education, Autonomous Palayamkottai, and the convener of this webinar to deliver the keynote address. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, Stella. The most respected Reverend Dr. Vasanthi Medona, our educational counselor, the most respected Reverend Sister Gemma, the Secretary St. Ignatius College of Education, respected resource person of the webinar, Dr. Mary Magdalene Abraham, Associate Professor, Research Center of English, Fathima College, Madurai, respected Reverend Dr. Nirmala Devi, our former principal in charge, respected Dr. Tarsita Shanti, the organizing secretaries of the webinar, dear Mrs. Jabashila Jennifer, the co-organizing secretary of the webinar, learned professors of St. Ignatius College of Education, dear participants and my dear student teachers. We all know that gender sensitivity is a very sensitive issue and it prevails in many countries, including despite all progress in art, literature, governance, and science and technology, we have not been able to remove the gender discrimination. Men still dominate over women. Gender inequality fuels against women and results in power imbalances. According to latest statistics, Afghanistan, Congo, India, Pakistan, and Somalia are the 5 countries that are dangerous for women in the issues of health, discrimination, cultural, sexual violence, and trafficking. Gender inequality is treated as a punishable offense as per laws of most of the country. It arises differences in socially constructed gender role. Gender system often dichotomous and hierarchical. Gender binary system may reflect the inequalities that manifest in numerous dimensions of daily life. Discrimination based on gender is a civil right violation that take place in many forms, including sexual harassment, pregnancy discrimination, unequal pay for the women who do the same job as men, and discrimination in employment and education. Our dailies brings us some news or other about ill treatment being meted out to women in some part of the country. Who should be blamed for these criminal activities? Do we blame the perpetrators whose minds are filled with patriarchal and chauvinistic thought for all such brutal crimes? Or do we blame the establishment for having failed to provide adequate security for our women? Or do we blame the league that are weak and weak amendments? Hence, we need to understand that it is a collective responsibility of all. One of the best possible strategies to minimize the gender discrimination in society is to promote gender awareness at all levels of society. With growing concern over the lack of gender sensitization among youth, the Central Board of Secondary Education has developed a kit on gender sensitivity for teachers to enable them to ensure unbiased participation of both boys and girls in the learning process. Hence, classrooms needs to be gender sensitive, and we have to take care of do's and don'ts for making classroom interaction. To overcome gender inequality, we need to have gender sensitive society. Taking into consideration of all these important points, we have organized this webinar on nurturing gender sensitivity. This webinar will help you enrich knowledge on understanding gender towards gender sensitivity. Dear participants, your intellectual contribution is very much needed for the successful conduct of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your noteworthy keynote address. Thank you. Great achievers find their true source of inspiration and remain focused on their goals to reach their success. Great achievers find their true source of inspiration and remain focused on their goals to reach their success. Today, we are so blessed to have the great achiever who reached many successes and shining in various fields, who is none other than Dr. Mary Magdalene Abraham, Associate Professor, Research Center of English, Fatima College Autonomous, Madurai, as a chief guest for this webinar. Now, I request the rational, reliable, resourceful personality and a great visionary, Reverend Sister Dr. A. Nirmala Devi, former principal in charge and assistant professor of education of St. Ignatius College of Education and the organizing secretary of this webinar to introduce the chief guest.
Good morning to you all. At the outset, I am glad and privileged to introduce Dr. Magdalene Abraham, who is a resource person for this webinar on nurturing gender sensitivity. She will be enlightening us to understand gender towards gender sensitivity. Dr. Magdalene Abraham is an associate professor in the Research Center of English at Fatima College, Autonomous, Madurai. A product of the University of Delhi, she has been teaching since 1986. In 1989, she was given the Best Teacher Award by the English Education Society, New Delhi. Magdalene was a UGC JRF and SRF scholar at Bharatidasan University and worked on the novels and short stories of F. Scott Fitzgerald for her doctoral program. Her areas of specialization include American literature, women's writing, and gender studies. Apart from maintaining a good academic record, she excelled as a sports person as well, representing her state in championships. She was Fulbright Scholar at the New School University, New York, and was a member of the Rotary International Exchange Program to Japan in 2002. She has visited other countries as well. She has quite a few publications to her credit. She is interested in theatre and has written and directed plays in English. She is a research guide and has guided research scholars both at MPhil and PhD levels and has also adjudicated PhD and MPhil thesis for different universities in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. She has also delivered lectures at UGC sponsored refresher courses in English and has conducted teacher training programs all over India. She has delivered lectures in various seminars, workshops, both at the national and regional levels. She has written 3 textbooks English for the UG students of Fatima College. She is a member of the Board of Studies in English at Scott Christian College Autonomous Nagarkoil, VVV College Autonomous Virudhunagar, Lady Doe College Autonomous Madurai, and Arlanandar College Autonomous Coimbatore. She was the coordinator of the UGC career-oriented diploma course in functional English at Fatima College and is a deputy coordinator of IQ and is a member of the NACS.
And I think for though I'll be repeating the names, it's worth it. So let me first thank the secretary, Reverend Sister Gemma. We have met many years ago, sister. Nice to see you once again. I thank the educational counselor, Reverend Dr. Vasanthi Medona, and the principal, Dr. Maria Saroja, who welcomed me very warmly, and we had a very nice telephone conversation as well. And I thank the organizers, Reverend Dr. Nirmala Devi, the former principal of St. Ignatius College of Education, Palamkote, Dr. Teresita Shanti, the controller of examinations, and Mrs. Jebashila Jennifer for inviting me. And if I've missed out anybody, let me just say that I thank the staff, the management of St. Ignatius College of Education, Palamkote, for for extending this invitation and also for reposing faith in me that I can talk on gender. So without much ado, we will get into the topic. Yes, I also acknowledge the presence of Reverend Dr. K.L. George, former principal of St. Joseph's College, Darjeeling, and Professor Joseph Doreraj from Gandhigram University. So thank you all for your virtual presence. Shall I start sharing my screen? I'll just share my screen now. One second. So, friends, my topic is understanding gender towards gender sensitivity. And usually when we use words like gender or feminism, the hackles are raised because these are two very misunderstood words, often interchangeably also used. And this is mainly because feminists are seen as man hating, westernized women who want power over men or want to do without them or even become like them. So I thought I'd go into the what and why of gender and also highlight some feminist literary theories, some perspectives, because so that everybody has a takeaway. I understand there are people who are there from the field of education and also teachers of literature who are listening in. So let us have a fruitful sharing of knowledge. I have divided my talk into two parts. I shall take 1 hour to complete my talk, though I was told by the organizers that I can take my time. You should never say that to a woman, especially a woman who is voluble. So I'm going to stick to 1 hour. And after that, if there are any questions and the organizers permitted, I'll be very happy to answer. So I'm dividing my talk, as I said, into two parts. The first deals with gender, and the second deals with some groundbreaking feminist literary concepts. So let me straight away get into this first part where we are going to define what gender means from two great literary writers. We start with Simone de Beauvoir, who wrote this book, The Second Sex, in 1949, a French writer, an intellectual, a philosopher, though she didn't like to be called that, an activist. And in The Second Sex, please read it, though it's voluminous, it's eminently readable, really very interesting. In this book, she gives a detailed analysis of women's oppression down the ages, and she gives a lot of examples to highlight her statements. And she is the one who made this statement, which is the starting point to analyze gender. And her statement is one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. And which means, it simply means that A, there is no pre established female nature, and B, womanhood is a social construct. What does this mean? There are two important words over here, pre established and then the social construct. It means that gender is not strongly believes that being a woman or this concept of woman is not natural, but a historical fact. That's why when she says there is no this is how it's this concept of woman is not a natural fact, but a historical fact. To become a woman, you conform to the dictates of society. So, gender is a social construct. Let us take, I'm going to skip a couple of decades and come to Judith Butler, who spoke on gender trouble, feminism, and the virginity in 1990. And this also has been a major theory in understanding the concept of gender. And both literature, students of scholars of literature and of sociology use her theory. She said, gender is what is put on. It's put on. It's something that we perform. invariably under constraint, daily under constraint, meaning that we are forced to, daily and incessantly with anxiety and depression. Why anxiety and depression? Because people are not comfortable with the gender role that is given to them. So when there is a conflict or disconnect between how one feels physically, mentally, and emotionally, and how society regards us or what it expects from us, then there is a gender identity disorder, and that is called gender dysphoria. Yeah, I can't see myself.
You can't see.
Okay. All right. So I want to draw your attention to this word performative, because Butler believes that gender is not the starting point. It is an identity constructed over time and through the body. How? Our parents, our teachers, the media, the society encourage us to perform the gender indicated by our bodies. We are assigned male at birth or assigned female at birth. And when there is, and this forms our core gender identity. And when there is a slight deviation, it is not acceptable. So if I want to put it very simply, it simply means gender is what we do, what we perform. Gender is not what we are. So I hope these two concepts, as put down by Simone de Beauvoir and Judith Butler, are clear.
The screen is not moving close to the camera.
Just give me a sec. Some technological hitch.
No, it's good.
But women have been the butt of jokes for centuries, and whatever they have achieved has hardly been acknowledged. Now, before we again go on to the slide, I want to talk about three important personalities. And why should I choose these three important personalities? It's because these people have shaped history, not only shaped history, they have shaped the way we think. And if I was to use these names in women's studies, I would probably call them villains of the piece. But now, since we are talking about gender, I'll have to call them the philosophers. So the first one is Aristotle. Aristotle is the person in his book Politics. I think it is chapter 9. You can take a look at it. The very first lines, he says, male is by nature superior. That is the remark of Aristotle. Male is by nature superior. So Aristotle advocated subordination of women because he believed that a woman's biology made her inferior to man. And it is this biological determinism that feminists have had to counter, they have had to fight. Because later, all the men, whenever they've had to attack women, they would refer to Aristotle's concept of biological determinism, or what became essentialism. Plato, however, the teacher of Aristotle, he said in his book Republic that men and women alike possess qualities which make a guardian. And modern feminists have used this as a springboard, the idea of Plato, to stress that their femaleness should not make a difference when they enter professions meant traditionally for men. Have you noticed that in all the STEM courses, STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, there is what we call a STEM gender gap, which means women are not encouraged to take up these STEM courses. You find men being encouraged to take up these STEM courses because society thinks that men can do a much better job if they go into science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So that is Aristotle for you. Freud. Freud, I'm coming to the 20th century now. Freud is the person who the psychologist who famously or infamously said, anatomy is destiny. And so there have been many theories around this a concept of Freud that anatomy is destiny, which is again a take from Aristotle's concept of logical determinism. And this is again a kind of a statement that women writers have had to disprove and say that this is a total misrepresentation of women. The third, an interesting person, actually, I like reading this person's writing simply because it is so witty. And on all other topics, whether it is politics or education, you get the best statements from him. But the comment on women is he has made some of the most disparaging statements on women, and he is Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay, he's the one who said a picture is worth 1,000 words, and things like stupidity and politics go together. And but on women, in his Napoleonic code of the 18th century, he said women are nothing but machines for producing children. Now, if you keep these three, the pronouncements made by the philosopher, the psychologist, and this great war leader, Napoleon, the statesman, you'll find that there are a lot of these disparaging comments, misrepresentations about women, and that seems to have become the norm. And there is always this binary between man and woman. All right, so let's take a look at what is assigned to women and to men, because till 1970, gender was only seen as a binary. It's only after the 1970s that we have this wide spectrum of gender and we have this expansiveness. So if you look at what is said for women, women were considered the second sex because Adam is considered the first sex, and after all, Eve is just an afterthought. God made her as a companion, and He didn't even make her. She didn't spring out of the head of Adam, so she's not his intellectual equal. I hope I'm clear. No, my slide is moving. Is my slide moving?
No, ma'am.
I'm seeing slide number 3, gender norms, heteronormativity.
Please close it.
Ma'am, you just select slide 3, then it is visible. Now it is visible.
All right, fine.
Yes.
Okay, so we were talking about Adam and Eve, and I was telling you that, well, this is everybody knows this story from the Bible, that Eve was not made from the head of man, so she's not considered his intellectual. She didn't come from the shoulders of man, so she's not physically his equal. Not from the heart, not from this region, so she's not even emotionally his equal, but from a spare rib, you see. So woman is considered the second sex, right? And then you have Ferdinand Lundberg, who said that women are the lost sex. And then you have the third sex, which are the other genders. Now, as I said, if you look at what has been ascribed for women, this is what man finds convenient in the subordinate group. He finds it very convenient to refer to the woman as the second sex, the other slave, etc., so that all the other qualities would spring from it. And whatever he cherishes in himself, you find attributed to man, the first sex, the self, etc., etc. So man is the self, and the woman is just the other. And this concept of the other, which Simone de Beauvoir talks about also in the second sex, is later on taken up by the post-colonial theorists also, the silencing of the other. Okay, where the colonies, the natives are seen as the other, women are seen as the other, children are seen as the other. The word other becomes expansive. Then you have man who considers himself the master and woman is the slave, because Aristotle has already said that woman is a slave. There are so many texts that you could refer to now, but for want of time, I'm just going to pick up a few of the ideas, because you can even refer to the Manusmriti and see how men and women are viewed in the Indian context. So I'm going to talk about the Western context over here. Man is seen as the subject because he's the doer, and the woman is just the object. She can be easily commodified. This is saying that man is transcendent. He has the capacity, he has the power, or he takes the power to move out of his home. He can seek a job, he can explore the various horizons, he can expand his mind. Whereas a woman is supposed to be imminent. She's at home. She's supposed to take care of the house. She doesn't have the freedom to move out. She's within the four walls. And she has to be happy with that imminence. And this is another thing that feminists have objected to. Man is always seen as the provider, the paterfamilias, the head of the household, the autocratic person who controls the family. And woman is just the receiver. Now, this word receiver also has been taken up by Freud. Again, I'm referring to Freud, where he says that women are, like empty vessels. They have to receive. Unless man puts something into the mind of a woman, she's not complete. So it is Freud who spoke about woman being the receiver. Now look at all the qualities that get assigned just because men and women have been viewed in this binary manner. So all that women have to practice is passivity, piety, and they must pretend to be ignorant because that satisfies the ego of man. And women are always considered emotional. They seem to be wired differently. And man can afford to be aggressive, rational, intelligent, and logical. Friends, I'm not here to put down men and champion the cause of women. I'm putting down all the ideas that we find in Western philosophy, in Western writing, so that something might appeal to you and you can use it for your research. The list will go on. It is not exhausted because women are also seen as incidental. I've not put it down the slide. They are also inessential. They are expected to play the role of the eternal feminine. It is the French Jesuit philosopher Teilhard de Chardin who propagated this concept of the eternal feminine, because the eternal feminine is the muse for man. She's the angel of the house. She has to inspire him to do greater things. And Professor Higgins in My Fair Lady, that is interesting. If you read My Fair Lady, you watch the movie, Professor Higgins made the statement, why can't a woman be like a man? And then he gives a long list of qualities that men have, and the women should rise up to the occasion and imitate those qualities. So that is the binary for you, the gender norms. So friends, this is just to whet your appetite on women's studies and gender studies. Right, we'll go on to slide number 4. Yeah. So this gives you a quick recap of what I said in slide number 1. It tells you the difference between sex and gender, telling us that sex is a biological difference, it is physiological, it is anatomical. It is one is expected to grow with the qualities attached to all these to the biological differences. So you're assigned male at birth or you're assigned female at birth, and society expects you to behave according to the sex. And gender, as we know, as Judith Butler said, it's a socio-cultural construct, and it's an identity that is generated by culture. So you can be a Delhi girl or a Chennai girl, depending on which, or you can be very conservative, depending on what socio-cultural background you come from. And we also understood that those who do not identify with gender are considered gender variant, and they are ostracized by society, looked down by society. And Butler's pronouncement on gender expression, which she said is a performance, is a theatrical element attached to it, because you always have to perform your gender to prove that you are you are you're sending out the right signals if you're male and if you're female. But in today's world, we are moving from cisgender to a vast spectrum of gender identities. And so we have the lesbians, we have the gays, we have the bisexuals, we have the transgenders, we have the queer, we have the intersex, we have the asexuals, we have the pansexuals, we have the demi-genders, and so on. We also have the two-spirit, which is culturally sanctioned by the Native Americans, because it is the two-spirit. These are the people who officially play a role in all the ceremonies that the Native Americans have. So that is gender expansion for you. And then I've just put down the flag of gender pride. It is called the Progress Pride flag. Earlier on, there used to be 3 or 4 colors. And as this gender spectrum started becoming wider, you find more colors on the flag, and then you also have the explanation for it. Right. So, okay. So now we come to gender polarization, which leads to stereotyping. And because we know that sexist stereotyping is highly resilient, and it is so firmly entrenched that even a chorus of dissenting voices cannot dislodge this kind of stereotyping. So it also leads to a very reductive way of looking at men and women when you put them in categories.
Little louder.
Okay. So I'm going to look at stereotyping from 4 points of view: from personality, domestic behavior, occupations, and physical appearances. I think I have half an hour more. All right. So this time. So when we take a look at personality, again, we go to the binary, the male-female binary. We are being told that, okay, men have a certain kind of personality and they have to maintain it. For example, boys don't cry. That's not something that boys should do. Or we talk about the typical alpha male, the James Bond character. Men have to be very masculine and they have to be like James Bond, the alpha male. Whereas women are the dumb blondes, they are called the dumb. Some of the blonde women are considered dumb. And then you have the stereotyping of women can't read maps, and Asian women are super feminine, because Asian women, unlike their Western counterparts, are more docile, more amenable to the family situations than their Western counterparts. So they're considered super feminine. And domestic behavior, man is always in charge of the house. He takes care of the marketing, he takes care of the repairs, because he knows everything. Whereas the women are nurturers, they are the caregivers, and they have to fulfill the role of a soccer mom. Take the child to the school, or pick up the kid from play or for tuition, and then generally take care of everybody's needs in a domestic household. Occupations, I spoke about the STEM subjects. Occupations, look at the occupations open for men and encouraged for men. You talk even to a two-year-old boy or a 3-year-old boy and ask him what he wants to become. I'm sure he'll say that he wants to become a doctor or he wants to become a lawyer. So scientists and doctors and administrators are all men. And men are encouraged to take up this occupation. Whereas look what is offered for women, or what is encouraged for women, is that you become a teacher, you become a nurse, not a doctor, but you become a nurse, or you become a secretary. And if nothing else works, you go to you become a maid or join the films and become a star. If a woman wants, or if a woman aspires for political office, then she's ridiculed. One has to only go back to the debates that we saw in US elections, in the run up to the US elections, when Hillary Clinton was running for presidency. And look at the way Donald Trump referred to her. He said, "You're scary." He said, "You're not a woman. You are a scary being." And why did he call her scary? Because she was aspiring for a post clearly meant for men, right? Physical appearances. Women have grown up, we have all grown up on these Mills and Boons novels and Barbara Cartland romantic novels. And there we get this formula of the TDH, the tall, dark, and handsome. So men are expected to be tall, dark, and handsome and broad shouldered. And that is the perfect appearance for men. Whereas women are supposed to be very graceful, petite, because it has to go with their docile behavior. And in literature, if you expand it and come to literature, you have women being divided into two categories, and there are only two, there's no in between. One is the lily versus the rose. And who are these lily characters? These lily characters are the virtuous women. They are the women who submit. And whereas the rose characters are the women who challenge. So the lily characters are the Sita, the Madonna, the Madonna figures. And when you come to literature, you'll find the physical appearance of these characters who are very virtuous, very homely. They are blonde with a heart-shaped face and blue eyes, and they are the perfect women which every man wants. Whereas you have the women who represent the rose character. They are, they have flashing eyes. They are brunettes. They are not blondes. They are brunettes, and they are out to challenge the men. If you just take Thomas Hardy's novel Return of the Native, you'll find two characters. One is Thompson, who's the typical blonde, blue-eyed homemaker, and you have Eustacia, who is a beautiful, strong, but with a temperament, who is a home breaker, and she is like Eve. Okay, the rebellious Eve, or Pandora, who's considered responsible for all the problems in the world, or Lilith, who comes even before Eve, who rebelled against Adam and God. So if you see the forms of fear and punishment, these are all imagined forms of fear. I missed out the word imagine. These are imagined forms of fear. For example, you take the Loch Ness monster in Scotland. Nobody has seen this Loch Ness monster, but still, assuming that there is a monster in that lake, that loch, the lake, it is given a female form, and she is called Nessie. Look at the names of the bombs that were dropped in the Taliban hideout. Daisy cutters. Whereas, look at the names given to the tanks, male names, Vikrant and Patton tanks. And all aggressive powers are male. The sun god, the wind, the devil. All this, what you fear, is male. And what destroys is female in a very derogatory way. So the hurricanes are given feminine names, Katrina or Rita, but anything to do with power is given male names. All right. So these gender stereotypes have to be dismantled, and there is a seismic shift from his story to her story. So feminists say that it is time for women to script her story, because all along we have been listening to his story. Okay, we move on to the next slide. What shapes gender? Right. So I've given you so many examples. I may not dwell on all of them, Culture, we have already discussed culture. I would like to dwell on upbringing, because all our behavior, our gender norms are ingrained in our in the socialization that takes place in the family, in the home. And it all depends on how the parents treat the boys, their daughters, and their sons. And there are few examples, like, when boys argue, it is called strong behavior. But when girls argue, it is called difficult behavior. And in families, we children are given gender appropriate toys. Look at the toys given to boys, the cars, and what is given to the girls, the dolls, the kind of clothes that are given to the boys and the girls, the magazines where girls are given, fashion magazines, whereas boys will be reading magazines about luxury cars and vehicles like that. And even colors, we say pink, girls should be wearing pink clothes in pink, whereas the boys should turn to blue. So this kind of socialization is strongly internalized, and it has its imprint on boys. It shapes the boys and girls as they grow into their gender roles. And it's nice if you have a healthy socialization pattern. I'm stressing this because personally, I come from a background where I was given opportunities equal to the opportunities given to my brother. So my father was very particular that even the girls, they should be, you should drive the car, you should come up in education, you should be good in sports. He took us hunting, rock climbing, you name it, traveling. So equal opportunities were given. And well, we had the best of everything. So it was easy to slip into that gender role with a very positive core identity. Okay, so it's very important how we socialize at home. Peers, especially in the workplace, we are influenced by our peers, and we behave accordingly. The media, it's nice to see that the media, there has been a shift on how they view gender. So earlier on, we used to have advertisements where even for something like a soap, you'll find a very attractive woman living in a big house, but then happily washing clothes. Now media has become sensitive to the to gender expansiveness, and you have some beautiful advertisement bringing in, roping in people from other genders. I particularly like the advertisement that has a transgender. It is a red label ad, and do look at it, where the transgender comes and offers tea, and how the lady in the car says no because she's disgusted that it comes from the hands of a transgender, but then she changes her mind. So that's a beautiful message that the media has given on including the transgenders. And then the Horlicks ad, that's another beautiful advertisement where this mother who drives, but she's stranded because there's a puncture, and the girls, there are only two girls in the car, and one girl comes out, and then she changes the tire. She very efficiently uses the jack, and she is able to change the tires, and the mother is shocked. So that is also because she assumes, or we always assume, that it is the man who's going to do it. And the mother asks this girl, where did you learn this? And she says, I saw my father do it. So media is now including other genders also in their advertisements. Religion has always been prescriptive. There is a whole list of do's and don'ts that religion prescribes for women, particularly the women, what all they have to do, what are the fasts that they have to keep, etc., etc. And also, religion is something that has denied leadership roles to women. That is something that the feminists have also contested. Fairy tales. Fairy tales are repositories of gender stereotypes. You have the Sleeping Beauties, you have the Cinderellas, you have the Rapunzels, all waiting for Prince Charming. And so when little girls are brought up on this steady diet of fairy tales, they also grow with that feeling that there will be some Prince Charming who's going to come and rescue them. and it doesn't happen most of the times. And look at Hans Andersen's Little Mermaid. What do we learn from that story? The Little Mermaid makes a big sacrifice for love. She exchanges her fish tail for the sake of human legs. And what for human legs? And what happens? We are told that she has to walk literally on fire. For what? For the sake of love. And today we have movies. I'm happy these fairy tales have now been made. Disney has revisited the fairy tales, and we have movies like Moana, Frozen, Brave. These are movies which are women centric, featuring fearless, determined young women. And when we played these movies for us, just a sec. When we played these movies for our students in Fatima College, the girls liked it so much that we incorporated it into the text, and now it has become part of our textbooks for Part 2 English. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So, given the fact. Hmm? Can you see my slide? It's on slide 8. Okay, I'm on slide 8. We are now, given the fact that we are living in this world which is full of sexist ideology, how do we counter it?
Countering sexist ideology. That is the slide is there.
Is it visible?
Countering sexist ideology.
Yes. Okay. If it's visible, fine.
Yes.
Yes. So how do we counter the sexist ideology in the 21st century? I mean, look at it. In the 21st century, we are still talking about sexism and how to move towards gender parity. So the first thing is that we prove gender baiters wrong. All these men who have been baiting us, right from Aristotle and even Freud. I tell my girls, see, Freud has said that we are empty vessels, and we have been told that empty vessels make noise. Then prove Freud wrong by learning to be silent for some time. The moment the teacher is not in the class, there's so much of noise in the classroom. So you prove Freud right when we do that. So let us prove gender baiters wrong, and show that women are not empty vessels. We already talked about proper socialization patterns at home, and then there's no need to be either hyper feminine or hyper masculine to prove a point. There's no need to go overboard armed with this concept of being super feminine or super masculine, the alpha male and the alpha female. Another way to counter sexist ideology is to become aware of the gender dynamics in the classroom, because most of us are students of education over here, and we are teacher educators also. So we should be very aware of what happens in the classroom, because our students, I've said the second point is sensitized students. Our students are with us for 5 to 6 hours in a day. And sometimes, the parents are not effective in shaping them, and it is the teachers who start playing the role of the mentors. And educational institutions are the right place to nurture gender parity, and how do we do it? Academically, if you have courses like gender studies or women's studies as a foundation course, it helps, especially in co-educational institution. It helps in proper gender socialization. It helps in countering sexist ideology. And it'll be good if you have clubs, variety of clubs. I'm sure a lot of institutions have these clubs. I'm sure a lot of institutions have these courses in their syllabus. And also another way of sensitizing our students is to make them aware of all the laws that are there for men and women. In our college, in Fatima College, we are very particular of talking about the Vishaka guidelines, making the girls aware of what their rights are. We also tell them about the POCSO Act so that they know what to do in this sexist world. So I'll move on to my next slide. Countering sexist ideology.
Excuse. Now we left.
Okay. I'm taking two important movements. Me Too movement. All of us have heard about the Me Too movement. Now it has been hijacked by the celebrities, where women who have experienced harassment can join this, can post it. And the next one is the He for She campaign. This is a UN campaign which talks about men standing for women, going shoulder to shoulder and helping women to get their rights and get their due. We also have the UN Sustainable Goal number 5, which assures gender equality and stresses that gender equality is a fundamental right. So, friends, this was a peep into understanding gender. Now, I'd like to quickly go to part 2 because being a literature person, I would certainly like to dwell on the literary aspects also, because there will be a lot of takeaways for scholars of literature. Right. I have 15 minutes more, so I'll keep time. So, why is it that we have had to have literary perspectives from women writers? Because when we read books about women written by men, we learn not what women feel, not what women experience, but what man thinks women should be. So the picture, the image of women in texts written by men, that picture is skewed, highly skewed, or it is they're misrepresentations. And therefore, women writers have to set this misrepresentation right. Women, and let me tell you, friends, that women writers are not seeking to establish a rival canon. They're not competing with men, but they want to establish an alternative canon. Let us put it that way. So there are so many perspectives, but I've picked up a few because this goes with understanding gender. Let me take the first one. I've put Betty Friedan, Kate Millett, and Shulamit Firestone in one group. I'm sure some of you would have heard these names. Let me start with Betty Friedan's Feminine Mystique. This concept of feminine mystique is this false identity of domestic bliss that women are encouraged to have. The man says that the man buys all the equipments, the implements, the gadgets, and then he thinks that a woman can just run the household just because there's a washing machine or there's a dishwasher, and she's made to feel that it is blissful doing domestic work. And Betty Friedan, when she took a survey of the American women in her times in the 1960s, she said a lot of women were feeling frustrated and unhappy because they were trapped in this feminine mystique. They were unable to explore an identity beyond this domesticated angel of the house. And it is Betty Friedan who said that this unhappiness, this frustration that the women had, is a problem that has no name. A problem that has no name. Okay, Kate Millett. I'll go quickly. These are my favorite texts, and I would love to dwell on this, but let's go over quickly. Kate Millett wrote The Sexual Politics in 1970, and she made the statement that patriarchy has God on its side. Such a strong patriarchy is such a strong force to contend with that it has God on its side. And she talks about this power struggle between the men and the women, this binary power struggle. And she says it is always the man who's trying to control the woman. That she calls as sexual politics. And she looks at sexual politics from various ways, including religion, education, socialization, occupation, economics, etc. So that is a very powerful theory you can use when you analyze women characters in creative writing. Shulamit Firestone is another radical feminist, and she has put forth this Red Stockings manifesto. Why is it Red Stockings? Because it is making fun of the blue stocking literary women. And here she says the Red Stocking women with the leftist leaning, they are the ones who jump into action. This is more of activism. And she attacks marriage, she attacks pregnancy. In fact, she's the one who said that pregnancy is barbaric. Why should women be pregnant? Why can't technology be used for men to bear children? And when these sort of pronouncements were made in the 1970s, like I was what I think I must have been a school kid, a high school kid, and people were taken in when these sort of pronouncements were made. I know my teachers used to talk about it because it is so attractive, and then you start thinking that, okay, yeah, I'm in this position, why should I undergo all the suffering? Why can't man also be why can't man also share it? So that is why we have to be very careful with what we say, because we are going to leave a great impression on the youngsters. And let me tell you, friends, all these writers, all these activists, whether it is Frieden or Millet or Shulamit Firestone, all of them recanted what they said. So what they said in the 1960s and what they said in the 1970s, they took back in the 1980s. For instance, Betty Friedan, who said that women should break free of the feminine mystique, she's the same person who said in her book, The Second Stage, which she wrote in the 1980s, that a woman should find happiness at home. So we have to be very careful if we are going to be just taken in by the pronouncements made by the feminists. And some of them are outrageous also. So let us be discerning readers. The literary aspect of it, these were the three radical feminists. There are many more radical feminists, but these are the important ones. We'll go to the literary perspective. Judith Fetterly, she asks us to be resisting readers, not assenting readers, she says. She says when you read textbooks about women, or when you read books about women written by men, she says you must practice a hermeneutics of suspicion. Be a little suspicious of what the men are trying to actually say. Read between the lines. Understand the sexist ideology at play. And that is why she says, if you are a resisting reader, then you can revisit the text. You can reread the text. Look at what is happening today. We have a beautiful paper on revisiting Shakespeare. And we have chosen all those pieces, all those writers who have looked at Shakespeare from a 21st century feminist perspective. And it's really interesting. That will be an example of revisiting text. You look at it from the woman's point of view. Alice Walker did not agree with the pronouncements made by the white feminists, and she preferred womanism. And she said, womanist is to feminist as purple is to lavender. Well, the same family, one branch of feminism, but then it doesn't work for all. There are different shades of feminism. This one kind of feminism doesn't apply to all, right? I'm quickly going over. Donna Haraway, she brought in this post-humanist concept where she wrote the Cyborg Manifesto, and she said because we know that cyborg is a creature who can identify with humans as well as machines. So she said in her Cyborg Manifesto that you can identify cyborg with the post-gender world because the liberatory possibilities are endless for women. So it's interesting when you go through the Cyborg Manifesto. Naomi Wolf, she is one of my favorite writers because we share the same birthday also. She spoke about a gender quake in her book Fire with Fire. She says women should stop victim posturing, because she says we have stolen fire from the gods. So let us now speak from a position of strength. We needn't go begging for our rights. That she calls victim posturing, and which she says is not healthy. now that we have, she speaks from the from the point of view of power feminism, and she says, let us stop saying that women have been oppressed, we have been suppressed, etc., etc. We have crossed that stage, because she says we women are making inroads into male bastions. They are storming the male bastions. Look at the kind of advancements that women have made in science, in technology, in the field of sports, in writing, you name it. They've gone to the moon. So women have been making grounds, gaining grounds. So she says, why dwell on the past? Let us move ahead, and let us talk from the point of view of, let us talk from the point of power, and not from the point of view of being a victim. All right. So I go, last slide. Friends, I said that we are now in a postmodern world, and a postmodern world always celebrates differences. There are fragments. It's a fragmented world. We are in a post-feminist world, because one kind of feminism doesn't work for all. So now there are many feminisms. We are in a post-feminist world. We are in a post-colonial world. We are in a post-humanist world. And we have moved from gender essentialism to a post-gender world. So all of this embraces plurality. All of this embraces differences. So instead of sticking on to meta narratives and being impressed by those meta narratives, let us script our mini narratives, and let us celebrate the differences. So thank you very much for listening to me. I'll be very happy to take questions if the organizers permit it.
So thank you, ma'am, for your exemplary and upright session. It was really very reflective and awakened our mind towards gender sensitivity. Thank you so much, ma'am. So
Thank you.
great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people. So dear participants, now it's time to clarify your doubts and give fruitful feedback about this session. So if you have any queries, you can clarify with our resource person, and you can share your fruitful feedback about this session also. So dear participants,
Not sharing, it's not moving.
so participants, if you have any queries, you can ask to the resource person. And if you can share your feedback, you can also share your feedback now. You can post it in the chat box also.
Somebody has raised a question on sex education. I didn't read it fully. Can you just look into the chat box? Yeah. Rama Lakshmi says she has a doubt. Sex education, is it suitable for teenage students? Yes, definitely. And as teachers, I think we should, when we were school going kids, I studied in Kendra Vidyalaya, sex education was introduced in the 7th or 8th standard. And I think thereafter it was taken off the syllabus. And it is better and healthier for society that sex education is introduced at the school level, because a lot of families don't talk about this. It's all a taboo. And therefore, the children start picking up ideas from their peers. And that is dangerous. So it is better that the mothers tell their daughters, why even the fathers tell their daughters what is puberty, and not wait for them to pick it up from somewhere else. And I think that is where, as teachers, we come in very strongly. There's no topic that is a taboo for us teachers, friends. I think we have to have that courage to speak about it in class, more so in a co-educational institution. So yes, sex education should be an important part. Just as gender studies should be an important part of education, sex education should be an important part. I hope I've answered your question. Somebody else is asking, do you think Indian women got freedom till now? She's asked two questions, and why Indian women are giving up their dreams because of family and circumstances. Indian women got their freedom till now. I don't know why only Indian. Why? Let us talk about all women. So, Thiru Selvi, A. Selvi. I think this is for all women. This question should be asked for all women. Have all women got their freedom? And what do we really mean by freedom? See, I have a little quarrel over there because when women keep talking about clamoring for freedom, 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 it comes at a price. And with all our freedom and with our rights, there's also a duty. I don't want to preach over here. I don't want to adopt a moral high ground. But I think there is a responsibility that goes with freedom. We are carried away by this concept of a modern woman who's out to always question and challenge society and challenge authority. Friends, it doesn't work that way. uh, Believe me, I have years. I'm 58 years old, and I've been teaching for 3 decades. So I have been witnessing this. So it's high time we tell our girl students that the sloganeering, it doesn't work. So I don't know how I can answer this question whether Indian women have got freedom till now. And the other question is, why are Indian women giving up their dreams because of family and circumstances? I have a different take on this. You can call me conventional or call me traditional. But I feel when a woman is doing something for the family, it is not a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice. She's, yes, maybe she's giving up. There are a lot of educated women who are at home simply because there's no one to take care of the children, and therefore they can't go out to work, and therefore they have, well, sacrificed their jobs. But then the joy of raising your children. I see a lot of my students who are brought up by their grandparents, brought up by their aunts, as a result of which they lack that affinity with their own parents. So when I ask the hostel students, where do you want to go? They'll say, I want to go to my grandmother's house, not even to the mother's house. So I don't think that we are giving up our dreams. We are giving up our. Maybe you can say, yeah, you have a government job, so you can talk about it. What about those women